Welcome back. We continue our week-long look at the three big questions facing every NSIC football team. And once again, David Brown is on hand to break it down. And today, 4 teams from the NSIC South Division. So we'll begin with a couple of Minnesota teams, starting with Concordia St. Paul. Just 5 wins in the last 3 years. So how do they get things jump-started, David?
As cliche as it is, it kind of starts with accountability. That's the main thing that head coach Shannon Currier has preached during this spring practice. They're raising expectations, and coaches are becoming a little more blunt with their players, actually. He says they'll call them out in the film room. They'll push them to be technically proficient. They were just 2-9 last season, and that kind of shows there's a ways to go. But Currier believes the talent is there. Maxon Hutton, for now, is the #1 quarterback. He split some time with Ron Johnson last year, who has since graduated. Hutton's a junior. He has a good arm, just a little inconsistent. He completed less than half of his passes in 2017. From there are a lot of individual pieces that have a chance to be good, Kelly, and some who need to be great in order for Concordia St. Paul to get that record back up.
One of those great pieces last year was wide receiver Marcus Gustafson. 9 touchdowns in 2017, but as you were just talking about, can other guys step up to relieve some of the pressure on him?
They're going to have to, and oddly enough, Marcus Gustafson is one of those players who has to be. And what's interesting in talking with Coach Currier, he understands Marcus Gustafson's a great player, but he says he needs to raise his game even more, not necessarily from a numbers perspective, but a lead by example perspective to help influence others. There are question marks at wide receiver behind Marcus, so they're going to have to rely on their backs as well. Darnell Roll led the Golden Bears in rushing yards last season, but a player to watch that Coach Currier pointed out was Shaq Johnson. He's technically the #2 running back, got some good time and some good experience last season, but they're also going to use him as a receiver this season as well. Maybe have him out of the slot or have him catch the ball out of the backfield. So while Gustafson put up good numbers, even when other defenses were keyed on him, it's up to the supporting cast to help ease things offensively a little bit for the Golden Bears in 2018.
On the other side of the ball, I mean, there's still work to do over there. CSP gave up nearly 450 yards on defense last season. So how are they going to try and shore that up?
Well, obviously, they're going to try and be a little more technically proficient, and one of those first steps is continuity. This is the first time in 6 years they've had the same defensive coordinator heading into this season as last season. Yes, they gave up a lot of yards last year, but when you're constantly learning a new scheme and new terminology, there's bound to be some miscommunication. This year, no excuses. Veterans should grow within the system. Chris Garrett and Dylan Wood return. They were the top 2 sack artists for the Golden Bears last year. They're veterans at linebacker and at cornerback as well. This is Shannon Currier's second go-around as Concordia St. Paul's head coach. The first time back in the early 2000s, he transformed a 2-8, 2-9 team into an 8-win, 9-win team. He is up to the challenge in his second stint. It's simply a matter of execution this time around.
We'll see what happens. All right, moving on to Southwest Minnesota State, another team that went 2-9 last season, but you got to put a little asterisk next to this one because their problems started right away when quarterback Blake Gimble went down in Game 2 with a shoulder injury. So what's his status?
Well, he was granted a medical hardship, and he's going to get a 6th year, so he didn't practice at all this spring. He's still rehabbing from his shoulder surgery, is Blake Gimble, so he didn't participate at all in the spring. But if there's any doubt that he's the starter, that was taken away when his primary backup, Connor Wilkie, got moved to wide receiver this year. Gimble is the guy, and SMSU is hoping he's going to be the guy who had back-to-back 3,000-yard seasons before his injury. To use one of my favorite metaphors, he was the straw that stirred the drink. When Gimble went down, the Mustang offense was stuck in the mud. They couldn't get anything consistent the rest of the season. They lost their last 8 games in 2017, so they're putting a lot on Blake Gimble, and Gimble's health is going to be obviously key to their success if they're going to have any in 2018.
Yeah, that's huge. But without Gimble practicing in the spring, who are some of the guys on offense that are stepping up to kind of fill that role?
Obviously, Max Simmons has to have a bounce back year. He's got to return to form. He had a bit of a sophomore slump. 18 touchdowns his freshman year, just 7 in his sophomore campaign. He's going to be moved around the field a lot as well, sometimes as a back, sometimes as a wide receiver. But more often than not, the Mustangs are going to miss Nate Hewitt at wide receiver. He ended his career as the NSIC's all-time leader in receptions, so obviously that's going to hurt. They're going to have to rely on a bunch of guys to make up for Hewitt's absence. Aaron Murphy, Bailey Olson, Eldridge Joyce, a really good tight end that had a strong second half of the season. Head coach Corey Sauter wants his players to be versatile in order to continue evolving as an offense. So don't be surprised if more backs and receivers move around to different parts of the field. He likes to get creative. Some of that creativity was lost when Gimble went down, but expect that to amp up once again this season.
We shall see. Other side of the ball, defensively, what is the outlook for the Mustangs?
Well, obviously they got to be more proficient and get to the quarterback. They were good at creating turnovers turnovers in 2017, but they were last in the NSIC in sacks, so establishing a pass rush is priority number one for the Mustangs. But at the very least, they returned one of the best linebackers in the conference in Alex Nye, 120 tackles last year, 5 forced fumbles, so he'll anchor a solid second level of the defense for the Mustangs. They'll need some redshirt guys to step up in the secondary, but J.D. Jackson-Hanchett is a solid shutdown corner. He had a 4-interception game on Thursday Night Football in Midco against SMSU Moorhead last season. He's back at corner. He can be a big difference maker as well. Overall, Coach Sutter called this a hungry group that's ready to rebound from the disappointment of last season. There have been some changes made in Marshall as well. For the first time, SMSU has a full-time strength coach, and they hope that will be one part of the continuity to keep teammates there during the summer. So one step at a time, the Mustangs trying to rebound from an uncharacteristically bad season.
All right, we shall see what happens. But yes, the strength coach could definitely help out. Just a different element.
Different vibe and helps keep players on campus during the summer.
Exactly. Well, David, don't move.
I'm not going to.
Two teams down, 2 to go. When we come back, we'll discuss the spring outlook for Upper Iowa and Augustana next on Midco Sports Tonight.